As you can see, tonight, we're going to do Nurturing Mathematical Minds, really looking at early maths in young children. If I introduce myself, my name is EILEEN ALLPRESS, and I work for the East of England Early Years Stronger Practice Hub as the research lead. However, I'm a retired primary school head. I was in the primary sector for over 25 years, so I've got a good range of experience both within early years and working within the research community. I worked for the research school based at Highfield Nursery. So for tonight's session, we're going to firstly start looking at our aims. So we're going to have a quick look at the guidance from the EF on early maths. We'll have a look at the guidance report. We're not going to look at all the strands. We're going to look mostly strand 1 and a little bit of strand 2. We're going to look at 6 strands of early years maths typical progression as identified from the NCETM. But really the focus tonight is to look at the practical ways that you can use maths within your provision to meet the needs of the children. We'll have a quick look at what is available on the evidence store and the early years toolkit. So it's hopefully a real light touch on some of the evidence, but obviously point you towards the evidence where if you wish to look at some further information beyond this session. So the first guidance thing we'll look at, this is the guidance report from the EF. It is early maths, improving maths in the early years and in Key Stage 1. Now, all their reports are very well researched. They're couched in very well looked at and well crafted evidence. Although it says early years in the Key Stage 1, when you read it through, it really just is identifying good mathematical practice. All the evidence, the guidance reports come in this particular format. There are particular strands. Now we're going to look at strand 1, which is looking at developing practitioners' understanding of how children learn maths. And I say a little touch on strand 2, but if you would like a hard copy of this, you will be able to either reach out or myself, and we'll be able to get you one in the post. You can read them online. Some people like the hard copy. Some people prefer to, or are perfectly happy reading it online, but I say they're both available and they're both free to you. So I say this is our evidence base, the first aspect of this webinar tonight. So starting with strand 1. So the first strand is very clear. It says practitioners require knowledge of how children learn maths. The more skilled a practitioner is, the better it is for the child. But maths is really always couched in our confidence, our memories of maths whenever we were at school. Some people are very happy dealing with them in maths, but also one of the problems whenever you're thinking about maths is the language that is used. And hopefully going through tonight, you can sort of think about your practice and give you time to reflect on what you already do. Because when I've done this webinar with previous cohorts, when we've gone through, they've sort of said, this is what we already do, but we didn't know that this fitted into this section of the maths curriculum. So it's just giving you sort of some reflection time and some practical ideas. And hopefully at the end of the session, I know it's only an hour, but you'll be able to sort of reflect on where you are feeling confident and other areas that you may want to develop. Maths links with all areas of the curriculum, and it links very closely to this slide. So you're thinking about the children you're working at and the span of the children you're working with. So it's your knowledge of where they are, how they can understand maths, how they approach maths, and how they see you approach maths, but also thinking about their ability about self-regulation and their metacognitive skills. So it's you understanding where the children are, how you can model things with them, how you can talk to them about maths, and how you can link maths in your day-to-day activities. And I put this picture of a child with a jigsaw here. With this quote, I can see you're thinking carefully about where the corners are on the jigsaw pieces. That could help you find the right place for it. However, I just want you to think about the children who, whenever they're doing an inset jigsaw, they know the piece goes in, but what they think about is, I'm going to put it in and I'm just going to smack it really hard and I'm going to make it fit. And then think about the child here who's obviously looking and able to rotate and use her spatial awareness to think, if I move this piece around, I'll make it fit better. So that's where the children are. When you think about the children you work with, where are the children along that spatial awareness? Because children have to be spatially aware to be able to complete a lot of mathematical tasks. And that's them beginning to understand where they are and where their body is. And so it's thinking about, again, how they manipulate, how they move things, and how they change and adapt things. And often, whenever you're working with very young children, you will see them trying to sit under a table and sit below a chair or squeeze into impossibly small spaces. That's because they're trying to work out where their body fits and how they can rotate their body. And after they can do that, then they'll learn to be able to rotate different places and different shapes and begin to build with things like in construction and making different types of comparisons and using different types of manipulatives. So it's that really long strand progression where the children are, and for you to understand where can you start working with the children that are in your group, where do you feel they are, and how can you use your practitioner knowledge? Because strand one is really clear. Strong practitioners with confident knowledge can really help promote children engage positively with maths. At the end of the reception year, this is where you can see we are expecting children to be. Now, the expected level of development is, you can see here, have a deep understanding to 10, including the composition of each number, subitize, and we will go through each of these words to talk through what they mean and what you can see how they fit within your day-to-day practice, and automatically recall number ones to 10. So not all children will reach there, but this is where we're expecting children at the end of their reception year to be if they are at the expected level of development. Some children will be on that, some children will not achieve that. But also thinking about the numerical patterns, you can see children at the expected level of development will verbally count beyond 20 and show the pattern of the counting system. And patterns are really key whenever you're looking at children developing mathematics skills. They're very important. But again, comparing quantities up to 10 in different contexts, and then explore and represent patterns within numbers up to 10. Now, on the right-hand side, this is something that's been developed by the EEF. Now, often when we think of maths, we often think about your attainment. Children achieve in a straight line, but what they've found out that we actually attain in a spiral. So you can see, you can start at the beginning and you go round, but the more repetition you do of a certain activity, the more you will move along. But it certainly isn't a I've achieved this, then I go on to the next goal. So they've used this spiral design to make us remember that, yes, you may have understood it today, but we need to repeat it and we need to go back to things to make sure they're well embedded within our understanding. Rather than children being able to count, let's say, to 5 on Monday, they don't repeat it and then they'll forget how to do it. So it's that pure thing of understanding that repetition so that we're working towards that ELG of number and ELG of numerical patterns. So that's where we will expect children at the age of 5 to get to. But how do we get there? What do we need to put in place? Now, the NCETM is the National College for Excellence in Teaching Maths. They do a lot of work. Now, a lot of their stuff is done for aged 5+. However, they have begun to look at and produce progression charts for children before the age of 5, so that practitioners can really understand how we get those building blocks so those children can have that secure journey from whenever they start learning about number. And children babies begin to start being able to count the number of voices in the room by the age of 7 months. So the journey starts a lot earlier than perhaps we have previously thought. So they have looked at 6 key areas of where we need to be and where for successful provision to have in place. So what I want you to do is think about your maths curriculum, your maths provision, and sort of what things do you have in place to meet these 6 key areas? Because children who are confident in these areas go on to engage more positively with mathematics in Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, and are more confident within using maths, not only within their school life, but within their future life. Because I think the problem we often think about maths is it's pigeonholed into something we do at school. We all need to be confident in maths, paying our bills, working out, understanding how we pay our rent, working out our shopping costs. So all those key life skills really need to be embedded for everybody within society. So the first 2 areas I thought we'd look at are cardinality and counting. So the cardinal value refers to the number of the quantity. So then number 1, 2, 3. So it's the order of numbers and how you can count things, the how manyness of things you represents. And you can see on the right-hand side, there are children sort of counting, moving, looking at different things, and another one using Numicon in the more formalized bit of counting. But the cardinality in counting is one of the key ones. But then the second bit is understanding that comparing numbers involves knowing which numbers are worth more or less than each other. So thinking about, I understand that 2 is less than 3, or 5 is bigger than 2. So that's the ability to compare. So let's look at the practical ways that we can promote cardinality and counting. So the first one of the things you can do when you want children to count, one of the tendencies we have is to put things in a line and get them to count 1, 2, 3, 4. But what research has said and then CTM suggests is you use areas like a sandpit. You put lots of different things in and you say, oh, can you get me 3? Can you get me 2? Different ways of making it less formalized. So children take away the idea that counting is how I line things up and count by rote, but it's a practical application. You can also use this for comparison bits as well. But so let's look at sort of all those different ways. You obviously, a lot of you have access to a sandpit, and it's getting those large amount of different things and go, I think you need to give me 3, or how do you fill your bucket with 3? Could you put in 3 scoops of sand? So it's checking how we use number in all different aspects. Also thinking about using your water tray, putting different size objects in there, and helps with cardinality. First, will you get me a green shape? Oh, what's the next one you're going to get me? So it's thinking about how you can use a sand tray, a water tray. So you can think about all those different ways and using them not through prescribed activities, but just whenever you're standing there and those teachable moments. When you see children are engrossed in or playing with, I can see, oh, you've got 1 dinosaur. Can you get me another dinosaur? Oh, that 1 and 1, that makes 2. So it's you're introducing counting into their day-to-day independent play. So rather than having designated math sessions, you are using those teachable moments, just like you would do whenever you're talking to children. When you're trying to do some language extension, you can do some maths extension. The third picture, they also suggest you encourage children to count not things that they can see, but they can count claps, they can use number rhymes, they can count hops, you can do lots of different things. So they get to understand and be able then to manipulate numbers in their head. So they know I can count 3, 1, 2, 3. So you can do lots of different games. Mirror clapping. So I'm clapping too, children. They can clap too, or whatever ability children you're working with. So that's different things, sounds, actions, words. So it's just introducing within those circle times, rather than just having a story or an activity, have a maths focus. And another one thing to do is when you roll a dice, you can play show me. So you roll the dice and show me one finger, or show me, two fingers, or show me, it's different ways of them learning, first of all, to count for themselves, but then starting to understand about the representation of number. So one dot, or you can also do that with a clapping game. If you roll the die and there's four, we do four claps, or you do four hops, or you do four jumps. So it's again introducing into all those independent plays or small group plays, the mathematical language that we can do. But on the last one as well, I think food is a real driver for most children, but it is fun whenever you're saying, how many plates do we need? Oh, I've got 3 biscuits. How many children will be able to have a biscuit? Do we need some more? Or how do I fill the cups again? You're creeping into other areas, but anything that they find important, and children very quickly will know if there are 3 children at the table and you have 2 biscuits, you're going to have a problem. And you can also think about when you're working with children, if you're trying to split something in half, they're very keen to know that it's exactly the same. So they are using that mathematical ability to problem solve and to engage in sort of the positive aspects of life. It's simple things as well, like we've got 4 children, how many chairs do we need? So, or knives and forks at dinner time. So it is thinking about all those different times during the day where you could just introduce that small section of mathematical practitioner talk. And again, with comparison, children love things in baskets. So, how can you make a long steak? How can you make a small steak? How can we make, can you get me 2 stones, then get me 3 stones, which is the bigger one? So children enjoy that manipulation. You can also do comparison with, is there, I get a big basket and a small basket. Which can we put lots more into? Which can we put less into? It's the things, do we have enough stones to fill this basket up? So it's all those different things. Children love those small containers. You're surrounded by lots and lots of resources within any setting that you can use. Stones or leaves or anything. You can fill them up. What can we fill? So that's that comparative talk. But again, thinking about the teddy bear's picnic, has every teddy got a cup, a plate? Do we have enough room for everybody? Have we got enough chairs? So I've got 3, again, thinking about, oh, we've got 3 teddy bears here. If we put one more, how many will we have? Is that more or less than we had before? And this is another idea on the right-hand side where you have jars with lots of things in. Which has got the most in? Should we tip them out and count them, put them back in again? And it's that excitement, and it's the simplest things that you can use. So it's that sort of having little stations where you can put different amounts of stuff in, different sorts of objects, different types of things. Just think, oh, can we put one more in here? Will it be full? Will it be empty? But again, and then on the bottom here, thinking about building bricks, shall we put one more on? Will that be taller? What would happen if we split it in 2? Oh, I've got 5 bricks in this tower. If we split it, oh look, I've got 2 bricks this side and 3 in the other. Oh, 5 and 3. That gives us 2. And then again, these little small fiddly pots. You could tip one out. Will this amount fit in this type of pot? It's sort of using different types of hands-on, easily made resources that you can use for that comparative bit. You could see here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 balls in the middle pot. Is there more in the one over here with the sticks in? Or is there more in the one with pine cones in? So it's simple resources, but just different ways. But the skill with these is using the practitioner's talk and giving yourself that opportunity to talk. Now, on the bottom side is a brilliant book called Life Size by Sophie Penn. Now she does life-size drawings of different animals. In the middle pages, I think it's a lion's mouth. And my grandchildren just love, I open the page out and go, is this lion's mouth big enough to eat your head? But inside there's lots of comparative bits. She even does how many books it would take to be the same size as a person, how many books are the same size to be a giraffe. And I think the children at Highfield in the nursery loved this book. And when they put it down, they chalked out how high it would be to be a giraffe using the book on the nursery floor. So that's a really good resource when you're thinking about the comparative heights. But as I say, you can see here, there's nothing that is out of place that you won't perhaps have had already within your setting, but it's just perhaps thinking about using it in a slightly different way. So that's the first two, cardinality and counting, and then comparison. So the next two areas we're going to look at are composition. So again, it's understanding that one number can be made up from two or small other numbers, and pattern. And composition is really useful whenever you're thinking about, whenever you're moving children on to supposition. Pattern is just a really wide field. When you think about pattern, a lot of the time your mind goes to beads and sort of blocks, but there are many different ways that you can extend looking at both composition and pattern. So composition here, we've got some, again, some ideas. Skittles. You have 6 skittles at the beginning. The child rolls a ball. Oh, we've got, how many standing up, how many falling down. Lots of different ways that when you're playing a game like that, you can sort of introduce that comparative discussion. So I mean, even there you can see, have we got all the same? Oh, we've got 2 blue, 2 red, 2 yellow. Oh, how many does that make all together? So it's thinking again, different ways that you can play the simple games, but it's that introductory element of that mathematical discussion. I'm looking at different pictures of, here we go. How many spots does the ladybird have? Oh, there's 3 on one side and 3 on the other. Oh, how many does that make? Oh, that makes 6. Oh, one's big. There were 2 big ones and 4 small ones. How many does that make altogether? So it's again thinking about that terminology. If we put them all together, what does that make? So they begin to understand that counting is important, cardinality is important, but understanding that when we count things out, they make that unique number. So you can see here we've got 4 and 2 make 6, 2 and 2 and 2 make 6. And then the last thing is thinking about putting the teddies on here. We're going to put 4 teddies on. How many teddies all together? If I take one away and put one on the side, that's 4. Oh, and this one over here, we've still got 5. Oh, let's split them down the middle. So it's just a simple way of putting some teddies on a cushion. If we put one more on, how many are? So it's making them think about those sort of simple interactions about how you can then think about they're beginning to sort of understand the way that our number bonds are made up, and that linking back to the early learning goal, how they begin then to be automatically recall because they've had such good experience of it. And at the bottom as well, sort of thinking about the composition, how many bits of fruit on the skewer, how many are melon? Oh, I've got 2 melon, I've got 2 whatever. I think, again, food is always really key, that it always gets children interested. But it's good, perhaps you often do this as a healthy eating activity with the children, but it's introducing that counting. So I think, oh, on my next one, we'll put one grape. So we have got 2 melon, 2 whatever, 2 kiwi fruit, 2 whatever. Oh, look, how many pieces of fruit all together. And then we've got a richness within our language of lots and lots of different songs. So we could use, I've used 5 little speckled frogs, there's many ones that you could do that use out there, but it's that thing, but it's also, as well as singing the song, using the children to be the frogs, or having frogs that the frogs hop off, and then keeping that counting element in. So that's sort of thinking about different ways, 5 little ducks, 5 currant buns. They all seem to be 5, but it's just thinking about introducing in song, but giving it a practical element as well, making some resource or making them have 5 fingers, so that they're linking the words of the song, the names of the numbers, but also to something practical that they can see and count. And then we come on to pattern. Now, you can see the first ones are very simple with pattern, building a tower. The child has used 3 colors, and different, you can see she's managed to do green, blue, grey, green, blue, grey, green. So she's unique. When you're looking at pattern and you're thinking, wondering where children are when you're assessing them, you look at the unit of repeat. Now she's using a 3-color unit of repeat because she's using a green, blue, grey, green, blue, grey. And in most children, when they're not secure in a unit of pattern, they make a mistake on the 3rd one. So if you're checking to see where a child is, make them do at least 3 repeats. But we've got lots of ways and lots of opportunity to talk about and look at different patterns. We could use lots of beads. We can also think about, you know, when you thread a bead, have they made a pattern? What could we do? You could talk them through what color would you do next. Also thinking about pattern, you can put things in pots. So you can see here, he's got the pots out. I'll have green in one, blue in another, green in one, blue in another. So it's different ways of looking at how you use different resources. You can do them outside. You can have a leaf, a stick, a leaf, a stick, a leaf, a stick, and a hop. It's just getting the children sort of cued into that there is pattern available in sort of all aspects of their life, and all aspects of it can be just outside as well. And then you can see the child here. I can see a puddle. I'm going to hop and skip. I'm going to hop on a skip, or I'm going to hop on a jump. You know, when you're walking along, you know, out for a walk, you can just introduce those patterns, a bit like when we were talking about previously, counting things that are not concrete, but you can do things lots of way. I mean, when you're walking with the children in the park, run to a tree, run to a bush, run to a tree, run to a bush. So they're listening to that pattern of language. And again, the child on the bottom, so putting some leaves out, using, you know, leaves, big leaf, small leaf, big leaf, small leaf. And it's that fun of the looking around the environment. What can you do to just sort of use the resources that are available, but to encourage that understanding of pattern and where pattern occurs? Because they've found that children who have a real good understanding of pattern find the more complex maths whenever they go further on in Key Stage 2, they find it much easier to see where things in, especially when they're engaging things like multiplication tables, so they can see the pattern of the number and they can help then with that using and applying their skills. So that's sort of looking at a simple way of engaging in pattern in slightly different ways. And then we're going to look at the last 2 areas. So shape and space and measure. So again, this links back to the picture of the child with these jigsaw. Understanding when shapes move or combine with other shapes, and it helps develop wider mathematical thinking. As I said, children need to find out how their body fits in. So they will need to do lots of trying to squeeze themselves into impossible little holes, or moving around, or looking at things from the different aspects, looking over things, looking round things. They have to physically do it to understand that's how we can move, then manipulate objects. So thinking about that child who is able to move that jigsaw piece around rather than the child who thinks that's the one who'll do it, I'll give it a good bash. So again, thinking about what you could put in place. They don't have to know the names of the shapes, but just so they can physically go around and go, oh, I've got one the same as this. Oh, that circle or that pink is the same as that one. So, and giving them a range of materials just to engage in making the different types of shapes. And then we've got measure, comparing different aspects such as length, weight, and volume. And that will really, the practical aspects of that in the early years will really help them whenever they go to look at more detailed units whenever they're in Key Stage 2. But it's understanding that things can be different length, different weight, and different volume. And children are great at that, because who doesn't know who's the tallest in the family? Who doesn't know who's got the most amount of something, biggest bit of cake? there's lots of things, and a volume, who doesn't know who's got the biggest amount of juice in their cup rather than the other person. So they are using those all the time, but it's just you introducing that language to them, that practitioner skill base. So let's think about the different ways we could introduce shape and space. So here we go. Things like having lots of boxes. How many teddy bears can we get in here? How many children would try and get in here? But it's thinking about what will fit in this space. Could we put any more in? What do we need a bigger box if we got a bigger teddy? So it's them sort of beginning to get that spatial awareness and thinking about this will fit in here. If I move it around a bit, it will fit here. So it's giving them a lovely activity. Lots of I've seen it done as well in nursery, where we use building blocks and we have to make beds for the dolls and beds for the Teds. So how many blocks does it make? So anything that where they're having to put in and manipulate toys, different things to get into a certain space. And then using things like tough trays, where you can say, oh, how many yellow do I have? If I put yellow on here, is there more yellow? So it's just moving those shapes around. Will they all fit on here? What could we do? Or could we make similar shapes? So it's thinking again about getting them to physically, because what they have to do is physically move it around and feel it and sort of get to grips with how these fit on here. So again, I'm thinking about the child on the end. How many spools, how many things can I get on here? Can I get any more? Is this one taller? Is it one shorter? So it's those manipulated bits, letting them step back and reflect. But it's also going out for walks where you think about, oh, can you find a bigger stick than that? That's always a challenge. Can you find a bigger leaf than that? Is there a smaller leaf than that? Where can you find this? So it's getting them to run around and look for, using your outside area, or you looking for any of the resources around. Can you find a flower? Can you find a tree with a big trunk? Can you get a bigger one? Can you get your arms around it? So it's using all those external things, but just say introducing that mathematical bit. And then who doesn't love a den? Let's build a den. Let's see how many children can we get in. Do we need bigger sticks? Do we need smaller sticks? It's lots of opportunity, but as I say, at the early years stage, they need to get that physical aspect of trying to fit into something and working it out for themselves. How can you build this? If we put this bigger stick in, will it help? And then there's always lots of stories around who you can sort of look at. For the children who are probably more able, they'll be able to sort of preliminary map making by looking at Rosie's walk, drawing where's Rosie walking around, where is she going to get her stuff from, so it's using the story and building a map. You can do it with things like post-its, you can do it on the floor, you can use things like, oh, the little red hen, where does she go, where is she walking around, what could we do? It doesn't have to be correctly representational, but they can draw whatever they feel that is correct, because also research says we often go too quickly to get children to formally write down number. We should be allowing them to use whatever mark making that they understand, as long as they can explain to you what they mean and it's clear for them, then that is much better than teaching them how to write digits that they haven't had concrete understanding what that digit means. So again, measure, water trays are ideal thing, aren't they? Where you've arranged different things, which holds more, which holds less. Can you put more? Can you put 2 cups of this in this one? So I mean, that's a fairly standard one that you probably all use. But also using again a tough tray with rice, with whatever, with different materials in, different size things, and getting them to sort of see what fits in where, which is more, which is less. And again, a more on the right hand side, it's again a more where they've used different pulses and different shape things. How many scoops to fit in here? What can we make? How can we find out which has got the most? Have we got more of the yellow peas than the red beans? So it's getting them to use and giving them a range of different scoops and things so they can work out. And often it's a good thing to put in a outlier there that it's no use at all, so they can really understand they have got to think about how they can use and adapt different tools. And again, the bottom measuring your who can make the biggest den, who can make the widest den, who can make the smallest den. So it's getting that outdoor stuff, getting them to just apply it to those real life situations. But it is at the early years stage is that bit where they can really get inside and see how small it is and sort of understand. You've got to work out proportion, you've got to work out lengths, you've got to work out different things. It's all those problem solving skills. And children who are really key at mathematics are really good at applying. A lot of children are really good at learning things by rote, such as counting, but whenever they take them away from the traditional way of showing problems, they find it very difficult to apply. And I love this one at the bottom. This is just a box with different lengths of strings in it. So the child just pulls, and you can make it ever so easy. I just thought it was a really simple idea where you could just see some children pulling for a long time, but it's just a fun way. Now, which took the longest to pull, which took the least time. It's just a fun, simple activity that would really make them sort of think about, oh, look, why do I have to keep pulling? Look at the length of this. And you could discuss with the child, which was the longest, which took the long time. Should we pull them all out and see? So it's just a fun individual way of looking at measuring. And then the simple one, when children are on a seesaw, who's heavier, who's lighter, who can go up higher, who can go faster. I mean, it's always with your young children of any age, it's just that competitive bit where what can you do? And things like using a seesaw, it can be really, really interesting to introduce that. I can see that you're pushing down really hard. Are you going to try and make your friend go higher? So it is introducing and using that mathematical language where you see it. Now, I mentioned subitizing before, and subitizing really just means that you can see that comes from the land to arrive suddenly. You and I can look at that tray of apples and know there's 5. So what they've found is that very young children are quick to subitize, and they learn it quite rapidly. And what we tend to do, or what we used to do as practitioners, the child would say this too, we would make them count them. And what they found out is that's undermining, the children know this too, and then you're thinking that you're making them check. So if you can see a child can say, oh, there's 2 there, you can see there's 2 there, just accept that it's 2. Don't ask them to count it out. And children start subitizing very, very early. And the perceptual subitizing, which is when you can just see things, I think they do up to 4. So it's something that it's interesting to see. And when you're trying to encourage children to subitize, what they've suggested is you put things out like a die. So you put your 3 in a diagonal bit and sort of say how many are there. So that helps link the spots on a die to the numbers of what they can see. So that is subitizing. Subitizing is just simply you can see the number. And most children some children grasp really quickly. Other children may need to play. You can play certain games like Kim's game, where you can put 2 things under, cover them and go, how many are there? And just help encourage them to be able to look and see. But if you know a child is secure, don't ask them to count it. If a child is saying, if you looked at those apples and thought there's 3, then you know there's a problem there. They haven't got an understanding. So you need to sort of take it back and think about where they are at present and how can you help make them secure before you move on to something else. But subitizing begins in infancy. As I said, from 7 months old, babies have a sensitivity to number. They will be able to hear voices when people come in a room. They won't be physically counting, but they have awareness that there is more than one person in the room. So that's when those skills start. So you can see here from the diagram at the bottom, we started those foundations. We have a small collection namer, and the way it moves through, but we perceptually subitize to 4. And then we move to 5, then we move to 10. But you can see it's perceptual to 5, which means that you can see it. Conceptual links back to your ability to understand composition. Conceptual subitizing is you would see 3 apples and 3 apples, and you knew 3 and 3 make 6. So then you'd be able to say, there are 6 there. So perceptual subitizing is just basically, for most early years children, what they're doing because they can just see the number, but they think it stops at the number 5. Hopefully we can get further clarification of that with future research, but that's where they think it is now. But then once we move beyond 5, children have to understand the composition. So which is why that links back to the NCETM 6 key areas that they really got to sort of, you've got to have those in place to really help engage. So perceptual subitizing, again, is where you just see. So again, this is just bringing together the previous slides. You can see 3 dots in a die and say 3. So if you want to encourage children to understand about subitizing, things like die, but if you're using objects, try and put them like the die, like them in that order. It isn't counting, it's a quantification method. They can see it, oh yeah, it's important, but the fast recognition of up to 4 items is the first step. So you continue with your cardinality and counting work, but when children are able to do subitizing, usually 4, you know that they're secure at it, but it's perceptual subitizing up to 5, and then they moving on to having to understand that composition. But here we have some other ideas. I thought these were really lovely for you to have around where you put different numbers of things in different boxes, which, I mean, there's loads of ways you could go with the picture on the left. You know, that you could count, you could compare, you could do lots of, which is measuring, you could do different patterns, but it's just a nice, simple resource. And again, the Teddy Bears Picnic, always a useful one to sort of link to many areas. Do we have enough cups? Do we have enough plates? Do we have enough teddies? Do we, you know, which is going to have more? How much cake would we need? Where would we place the cups? Is there enough space around? So it's just a simple way of putting something out, but it's that, again, the way that you engage. And I think what they've said is you can put lots of resources out, but it has to be that practitioner-led skill that really makes it engaging for the children and meaning for the children. Now we said we'd look at strand 1. We also thought we'd touch a little bit on strand 2. I've put on here 2 websites where they sort of said strand 2 says you must have maths as part of the day throughout the day, which means that trying to steer away from sort of the school-based curriculum where we have, and at Key Stage 1 anyway, where you have a dedicated maths time, but it's weaving maths through all your existing activities. So if you're doing a story time, I've put 2, one down, this Pattern Fish on the right hand side. There is another book on there called Pattern Bug, which I didn't include in the picture, but that series is available, and they also have it on YouTube. So they're lovely stories linked to patterns in nature. And then there's swirl by swirl. And, you know, you could see if you were doing a story time rather than just purely doing your basic story, you could do a swirl by swirl, perhaps then going on a snail hunt, see how many you could find, what different shapes were there. So it's that, what it says here, research shows it can be effective, but it's that when it's promoted mathematical discussion. So if you're using something like Pattern Fish or Pattern Bug, have some activity that you could link it to afterwards, or even look at the existing stories you already use. Perhaps there's something there you haven't thought about. I mean, even simple stories like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You know, there's maths within that. You may already use that in your curriculum. You could have the three bears. Who sits at the who needs the biggest chair? Who needs the smallest chair? Who's got the biggest bowl of porridge? How much more porridge does a daddy bear want rather than mommy bear? So it's, again, looking at the stories and just perhaps flipping them rather than having just a pure story. Try and see how you could introduce maths into the discussion. So again, just linking back to that, what we said before, highlight maths through the day. So the rules and routines, snack times, I mean, they're key, aren't you? You try to give one child one bit of apple more than another. You know, you can understand they're really sharp on things like that. And that's them engaging and understanding maths is really part of our whole life, but it's a meaningful context for that child. Are there enough plates? Because if you don't have a plate, you perhaps won't get your sandwich. Or thinking about if you're doing toast, routines of the day, who wants squares, who wants triangles. So it's that thing, identifying that teachable moment, not just to say, just think, this is a good thing. We're sitting around here, perhaps we could do this. Oh, look, we've got a die, it's got a number on it. How can we find out what that is? Or is it bigger than? Should we roll the big die or the small die? Which block is bigger? It's all those different things where you're sort of working with a small group. You sort of think, I could perhaps introduce some mathematical language in it. And again, this is just from the strand 2, thinking about when you are discussing, because the practitioner is the best resource in the room. So it's that shared thinking, guided interaction. So it's thinking about whenever you think, how did you do that? Why does this go here? Why did you add this to this necklace? Oh, what's the next one you're going to do? Then asking the children to explain. I really want to know more about this. I love the model you made. What shape did you put on here? Why did you make it so tall? Do you want to make it any taller? So it's thinking about that maths talk. So, and then listening to what the children are saying and then recapping it back to them. So you think that if we add another block on here, it'll be taller than this one. Do you think we should add that? So, and then it's all that clarification, but using that mathematical thinking. So that's really what strand 2 says. If you as a practitioner working with a small group, any activity you can, but whenever you're thinking about what could I interject, what mathematical language can I interject in here? And again, half of this, all of this, what can you see? If you're given half an apple, you've got to give half an apple. Or if you're offering a cake, is it all of this? And again, it's walking along the street, sort of thinking, what can you see? How many silver cars? Well, they're all silver, aren't they? But how many buses? What can you see whenever you're walking down the street? What can you see in the shop? How many models can you see? How many, it's all different things, whatever you can see within your environment. I think cake is always useful. But how many candles do you need? So what child doesn't know what age they are and how many candles they need in their cake? And if you're going to share a cake, use a comparative one, big cake, little cake, which one will the children go for? So it's just thinking about that exploratory play where you can do it's, as I say in the guidance report, that teachable moments. And just although a touch on manipulatives, we're rich. We've got lots of different types of resources around, and often the best play is whenever the adult models what those resources are. As I just put this quote in, kinesthetic experiences can enhance, but it doesn't travel up the fingertips and in the arm. So if you're working with or introducing with a new resource, or you're introducing a different way of using a manipulative, you need to really clearly model to the child what they're expected to do, or else they end up with not good quality play. They might engage with it, but they're not getting the fullness of what that resource is. So it's you modeling and modeling repeatedly so that the child understands, this is what this resource can be used for at this time. So it's that high quality practitioner modeling. And again, from further research, even the best designed ones, children will go off and do their own thing with them. The resource may be well designed to do something, build pattern, build tower, build whatever, but children will, if they don't understand that, they will deviate and will use it in whatever way they think fit. So you see here, there's a pegboard. This child is just building a tower. Wouldn't it have been useful, perhaps if a practitioner sat down and say, let's put in the pegs, let's see how we can make a pattern. So it's just making sure that it is directed and the children understand the best use of. And again, sort of here, you've got some ways, different ways of using your environment. Remembering patterns can be circular. I like this one with stones, where they can use and build stuff and paint stones. Looking at sticks, how many activities could you use with pile of sticks? Big sticks, small sticks, lots of things, different ways of, here you can use that, which is thick, which is thin, which is strong, which is longer. And I love this activity at the bottom where they put a lot of natural materials out, which again, you could see all 6 areas could be investigated using an activity just as this, just different ways of putting things out. But if you're putting out a beautiful activity like this, again, making sure that it's modeled and you're talking to the children so they understand when you're using this resource, this is sort of the activity we would like you to sort of think about. And again, I just thought it'd be useful for you to reflect on where your outside area is. So thinking about, are there different routes, slopes and places to hide? Again, that's getting back to that spatial awareness. Can they hide? Can they run behind something? Can they, it's like children who play hide and seek, but they stand behind a very thin post. They're not really understanding what space their body fills. But varied routes, I'm higher than you, is there slopes that they can climb up? Are there things to throw, climb and balance on? And again, it's always thinking about if you've got indoor resources such as dice and construction, do you have them outside? So they're understanding that you can use this for a maths activity within setting, but can you use it outside? And again, simple ones, weatherproof numerals on fences, stepping stones, washing lines, you can put lots of things. I've seen socks and patterns on washing lines, lots of different things that the children can do and use, and different shapes and sizes. I mean, varying shapes in the sand pit, So it's all those ways of thinking back to those 6 key areas that you can then think, this is what we could use. But I think what my thinking is, it's thinking about those teachable moments. Now, the Early Childhood Maths Group have a website which is full of lots of really useful information. They have these postcards. There are 20 of them, and I thought I've just picked 2, which if you want to share with parents or you want to put in your newsletter, is just ways that you can perhaps encourage parents when they're out and about to engage in mathematical talk as they're walking along. So I just thought I like this one. Jigsaw puzzles, you can see, lots of different ways. They're very simple, but it's just maybe those less confident parents who could need some support. And they're simple ideas, just cut up some pictures. How could you put them together? It doesn't have to be jigsaws. So it's just giving them those simple ways in to talk about maths to their children, because often parents have had difficult experiences with maths as well. And sometimes when you talk to parents, I know as a teacher did, they were very quick to say, oh, I wasn't very good at maths at school. So that's giving that message to the child that they weren't very confident, so it's okay for their child to be. But we want children to be more positive and engage with maths. So I say it's just one idea. And then the second one is walking to the shops. You gave me the directions. What way do we go? How many lampposts? Where's the bus stop? Some of these door numbers are missing. So it's just simple ideas, but you can download those and they're printable and they're all free. But also on that Early Childhood Maths website, there is a document which will link areas of maths to the Birth to 5 Matters and Development Matters. So if you want to look at the trajectory of learning, there's very clear links with the 6 areas and different whatever advisory booklet or that you use, whichever one you use. It's just very clear. It's a good website and written by people who have a really good understanding of Sue Gifford, Alison Blackthorne. It's just people who are really good at and good understanding of maths, and the stuff on there is well evidenced. Coming your way, if you're a childminder, some of you, if you have heard of Maths Champions, but they are now developing a Childminder Maths Champions program, which is rolling out in September, I think in the Norfolk area, but we're hoping that it will become an accessible program for all childminders. So that is being worked on at present, and that's an online resource, again, linked to the areas of maths. It'll help you. It gives you lots of ideas, lots of resources, and lots of ideas for activities. It's purely online, so you can access it when and when. So hopefully that will be rolled out to you. I know it's been available to nurseries and PVIs, but say watch out for that one, because I think it's a really interesting. We as Stronger Practice Hub have been working alongside NBNA to develop that. So I'm really excited about that coming your way. If you also want to look at the Early Years Evidence Store, it's came live in November, but again, you can see here, you click on that, there's some evidence on there, but there's also little clips that are 2 or 3 minutes long that you can look at and sort of think about, oh, where would I like to see? Perhaps you look at promoting fluency with numbers and sequences. So you can click on that, scroll down, and then you can see some short clips of practitioners actually engaging in activities that support them. So there's lots and lots of stuff on there on the Early Years Evidence Store. And again, that's free and available for you to access whenever you want. There's the Early Years Toolkit. Again, there's more information on there. They do not have the clips on it, but they do have some information on different activities and different approaches to approach, as you see, early numeracy approaches and the impact they can have. But I say, those are all EEF-based resources, and they're the Early Childhood Maths one is not, but the other two are, but you can access those to get further information after the webinar. And there I'm going to stop. I'm going to say any questions. So I'm just going to. Okay. Just going to stop there.
Sorry, I haven't got my camera on. But
That's all right.
I had a question. So I did some training on 5 and 10 frames. But I'm not sure, you talked about dice patterns.
Yeah.
And they were advising to do 5 and 10 frames instead of dice patterns. I don't know how you feel, which is better.
I think you do whatever is more you're confident for you, to be honest. If you've been trained in it and you
yeah, I've done a little bit.
Yeah.
But they were talking about recognizing there's one missing from the 10 frames. They automatically knew that there was 9. So once they got used to the 5s, you know, they recognized that it was 3 in a 10 frame, then 4, then 5. And when they went onto the 10 frame, then they could recognize that there was 5 and 4, you know, and 1 was missing, so it must be 9.
Similar to Numicon. I think maths is one of these areas that certain people have. You find what works for you. For the NCTM, the training I did recently with them, they were suggesting for things like subitizing, children could grasp it quicker if you put them in the dice pattern. But that's research, and that's a research in progress. And but you find that the children you're working with can grasp it better with the 5 frame and the 10 frame than you use it.
Well, I did that some time ago. The children I have now are only 2, so they're still at the beginning. But I just wondered whether to go forward with the maybe we'll try both and see what works for each child then.
I think the thing is, going back to that metacognitive bit, you and we all learn, you have to find out what works for each child, don't you?
Exactly.
Some children will really respond well to that frame, but other children really like that practicality of having 3 dinosaurs in a row, you know what I mean? And you're engaging them in a fun activity that they can understand.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
they both work. It's just what works for each child.
Yeah. And I think there's different schools of thought. But one thing as well, if you're doing 5 frame and 10 frame, if you use double-sided counters.
Yes.
That's a good way to I don't know if that was part of your training, but you make yellow on one side and red on the other, and it's great because they can turn them over and you can see straight away the composition of 5 and the composition of 10.
Yes, that was they did talk about that briefly, but not in depth because I only did a taster thing.
That's a simple one. Just gluing 2 bits of paper together and cutting them into counters. It was really visual, really quick that they could do to sort of to work on that composition. And I say any way in with anything to do positivity with maths.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
don't know if there's any more questions, or is anything? I realize we're
If we got just oh wait, if there is any more question, I'm just gonna say a big thank you, Eileen, to you. I thought that was excellent, and I really like all the practical ideas that you've given us. So um, really knowledgeable on that. So thank you ever so much. I have put a feedback link in the chat just now. So if and that really helps us with our measuring our impact and also trying to secure future funding and whatever. So there's if you can please click on that. It'll take about 1 minute, if that, just to do a quick bit of feedback for us. And I'd also quickly say you should have had a newsletter yesterday. If you did have a newsletter, please check your junk mail, and can you just please open it, even if you don't want to read it. I won't be offended, but by opening the newsletter, that's one of our um, key indicators to keep the hub going. As many people to open our newsletters as possible. So even if you saw it, oh, I don't want to read it, please open it, because the fact that you open it gets us a score, if you like. So thank you very much for that. And also, I wanted to mention, I'm going to put another link in the chat, which is we have a webinar next Monday, which Kim Barnettson, I know she's on, I can see her, she's waving now. Kim Barnettson is leading a community of practice for childminders on loose parts. I know lots of you would have been to our loose parts sessions, and there's going to be um, a webinar next Monday, 7 o'clock. I'm just going to put the details on the chat now. If you'd like to sign up, a lot of you hopefully will have had this email, but that's there next Monday at 7 o'clock. And Kim will be talking about loose parts and getting your feedback from the sessions that you've been to, and also kind of trying to support each other in moving that forward. So looking forward to that. I know Kim's webinars have been very well received so far. I don't know if we've had any questions. I mean, we're getting some
Damon,
feedback, which is good.
I'll send the somebody's asked for the PowerPoint. I'll send
Oh
that.
yes,
You can have
I
that.
will.
I'll send that to you,
Brilliant.
and you can distribute it. People can use it at will.
Thank you. That's really
And,
kind of you, Eileen. Thank you. I'll get that emailed out then to everyone who's been tonight. So thank you very much for that.
and if they want any copies of
Um,
the guidance report, just if you let us know, we can get them out to them.
I'll put some of those links in that you've been. I've been making a note of the links that you've been mentioning, so I'll put those in into the email as well. But I think I can't see any more questions, so I think that might have brought it to an end. But thank you so much, Eileen.
Thank you. Yeah, we're getting some good feedback, so that's good. Oh, the link hasn't shown up. No.
Oh, I'll put it up again, Lorna. Uh, I'll just put it up again, Lorna. If you don't get it this time, Lorna, it'll be in the email. I'll put it in the email as well.
Seems that people are finding it useful. That's good. Good.
Yeah, please do the feedback. See, if you did find it, well, however you found it, please do the feedback, because then we've got it. It's measured. Then it's lovely to see all the comments. But please, if you want to feedback, do it through the link. Thank you ever so much, everyone. I will email you, Lorna. Still can't see the link. I don't know. I don't know why the link's not coming out with some people. If you can find the chat, sometimes it's different on different devices.
Yeah. The joy of technology.
Uh,
Sometimes it's
hold on, hold on. Oh, I think try it one more time. I think it's been going to individuals. There you go. Hopefully that's come up now for everyone. My emails are pinging, so that's good. That means a lot of people are filling in the feedback sheet.
okay. Oh yeah.
Right, so I think call it a day then. If everyone's feel free to leave when you're done, everyone. But thank you very much for coming and giving up your time. And thanks again to Eileen.
Thank you very much. It was a good evening. Thank you.
Hopefully it was useful.
Very, very useful. Really nice to have different ideas. I've done it for a long time now, and it's really nice just to have some unusual ones and things. So thank you very much. You get a bit stale, don't you? It's nice to share.
We do have a I don't know if we've got a leaflet that I can get Ruth to email you as well with all the ideas.
Oh yeah, that'd be good.
Well, that'd be lovely.
Yeah. Designed by the Mrs. Coleman, but yeah, I can email her and then get that sent to you so it can go out with
that would be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then because I've taken photos of a lot of the link to share with the group, we have a sort of childminding group. So I know a lot of them couldn't make it tonight. So I was going to try and sort of talk them through the pictures and photos. So yeah, that'd be brilliant if you could send it out. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get that email to you from the office statement tomorrow so that that can go out with the PowerPoint slides. Give us a bit more
Brilliant.
context.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Julia.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
I think we'll just end the meeting.
Yeah, I think so, Eileen. Thank you.
Cheers then.
Take care. Thanks ever so much. That was brilliant.
Cheers. Bye.